Good afternoon. The meeting for the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure will now come to order. Will the committee secretary please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Brown May. Here. Assemblyman Ellison. Here. Assemblyman Levitt. Here. Assemblyman Miller. Here. Assemblywoman Peters. Here. Assemblyman Roberts. Here. Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. Here. Assemblyman Watts. Here. Assemblyman Wheeler. Assemblyman Yeager. Here. Chairman Roe Moreno.
And I am here. And we have a quorum. All of our members are here. And I'd like to welcome you guys to, it feels like the first day of school. It's our first committee meeting in our committee room. So for those of you joining us virtually, and especially for those of you that are joining us here in the room, welcome. Today we will be hearing 3 bills. Although the building is open, it's open on a limited basis. And so we are still having people join us virtually on Zoom and by telephone. For those of us who are joining us in the room, please remember to keep your mask on and continue to follow all social distancing procedures. In the interest of time, and it's beautiful outside, if you haven't been outside, please get outside today for a walk. It's gorgeous out. We will start with our first bill, and we're going to go a little bit out of order today. We're going to start with Senate Bill 362. After that, our 3 bill hearings, we will have public comment at the end. For those of you that would like to join us for public comment, please know that your comments will be limited to just 2 minutes. And to the RTC that's here, we will start with your bill presentation, Senate Bill 362. I would normally say the virtual floor is yours, but the floor is yours. So we welcome you to the presenter's table.
Oh, it's good to see everyone. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I am Howard Watts. I have the honor of representing District 15 in Clark County. And I am here today to open up the presentation on this bill, Senate Bill 362. As one of the co-chairs of the Southern Nevada Forum, which met in the interim between legislative sessions, this was the main priority that emerged from our subcommittee. For those of you that don't know, the Southern Nevada Forum is made as a bipartisan, bicameral entity, and we decided that it was important to make sure that we expanded the ability to have microtransit options in every portion of our state. So we moved the recommendation forward from our subcommittee to the full forum, which overwhelmingly decided to advance it to the legislature. So with that, to provide some additional details on the proposal, we have folks here from the RTC of Southern Nevada, and I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you, Vice Chair Watts.
Thank you, Assemblyman Watts, and good afternoon, Chairwoman Monroe Moreno and the committee. MJ Maynard, RTC of Southern Nevada, CEO for the record. Before we get into the details of the legislation, I'd like to take a quick moment to thank the committee for hearing this bill and the Southern Nevada Forum for making public transportation a priority for the community and bringing this request forward. Public transportation is a bipartisan effort, and in order to better serve residents and create mobility solutions for Southern Nevada, the RTC is seeking the authority to offer microtransit as a tool in our toolbox, which is the same authority given to all the counties except Clark County. Microtransit is defined in NRS 277A.280, is transportation by a multi-passenger vehicle that carries fewer passengers than the vehicles normally used on regular routes and is dispatched through a digital network or software application service. In other words, microtransit is a smaller vehicle on-demand service that passengers can request from their mobile devices in comparison to the fixed route large bus services typically provided by transit agencies. The RTC would use microtransit to provide first and last mile public transportation solutions and additional mobility services in those areas that need transit. Pending passage of this bill, the RTC could operate microtransit as early as August of this year with the proposed transit service changes that could benefit more than 185,000 residents who currently do not have access to transit at all. Innovation is disrupting every industry, and the RTC needs to be able to quickly respond to customer demand and provide the most efficient and effective transportation services for our customers. Now I'd like to turn over to RTC's Associate General Counsel, David Clyde, to provide the additional legislation details, including the technical changes made to the statute.
Thank you, Ms. Maynard. Good afternoon, committee members. David Clyde, RTC Associate General Counsel, for the record. This bill makes two specific edits to NRS 377A and NRS 277A. First, in NRS 277A.140, we propose removing the limitations in sections 2 and 3 that regarding the RTC's ability to provide on-call public transportation services. Then in NRS 277A.280, we recommend shifting the language from NRS 277A.280 subsection 3C that permits microtransit service in every other county except for Clark County, and creating a new section in NRS 277A.280 subsection 1E, and shifting that language in that would then permit every county, including Clark County, to provide that same microtransit service. Again, thank you, committee members, for hearing Senate Bill 362, and we're here to answer any questions that you might have. Due to, I think we'll be playing a little bit of musical chairs here, but if you have any sort of technical questions on the statute, I'd be happy to answer them, or any questions on the specific transit service, Ms. Maynard will be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much. So before you leave, members, do you have any questions for him before we start playing musical chairs with the questions? Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for bringing this bill. Last session, I brought a bill to offer a pilot transit project to Washoe County and was really supportive of it. But one of the things that we wanted to make sure we got on the record is in expanding the current transit system, does RTC propose to or anticipate to use the use of non-union contractors to expand these services?
With that being a question on the services, I'll have Ms. Maynard.
MJ Maynard for the record. That's a great question. Like all RTC provided transit services, all services provided today and going forward are union drivers. As a matter of fact, we have an RFP on the street that if this proposed bill goes through, will include in that bill that the drivers of the service are in fact union employees.
Great, thank you. Just wanted to make sure we weren't trying to use an Uber app or to subcontract with one of those folks. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Next, I have Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong and then Assemblyman Levitt.
Thank you, Ms. Maynard, for the presentation. Question, so the microtransit would not necessarily be expanding the service area. So we would not, so your organization would not be expanding paratransit? How does that work? Thank you.
Microtransit in and of itself, the proposed service area would be in the southwest area that currently has no transit. This pilot would actually include, the microtransit pilot would include service for both fixed route customers and paratransit customers. So to answer your question, yes, in this new area that has had no transit service, both paratransit and fixed route customers will be able to access this microtransit pilot.
Follow-up, Chair? Go ahead. So just sort of elaborate, would this be accessing it, meaning that they would get to the next, if you could just sort of
Right.
talk about how this works. It's not a complete expansion where you have the door-to-door for paratransit. Is that correct? It's a connection?
MJ Maynard for the record. For this microtransit proposed pilot for paratransit customers, they would access their trip on demand by way of a mobile device, or they could call to actually reserve a ride. They would be picked up, and they would be taken to their destination point. For fixed route customers, they would access, again, they'd either call it in or through a mobile device, and within 30 minutes, the smaller microtransit vehicle would pick them up and take them to the nearest bus stop to connect to our fixed route system.
Thank you. One more follow-up, please, Chair. Thank you so much. So it's like a split. The paratransit is the full service. The fixed route is to the next closest fixed route location. Is that correct?
MJ Mayor, for the record, that is correct.
So how will that affect your bottom line? How are you going to deal with the bottom line on this?
That's a great question, and thank you for that. Prior to the pandemic, RTC's transit fund was facing a deficit. The pandemic exacerbated our transit fund significantly, but because we're receiving stimulus funds, we'll be able to use stimulus funds to introduce this microtransit pilot to the community.
Assemblyman Levitt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a contracted service, right? So whoever operates this microtransit service, if it does come into effect, they're not government employees, correct?
MJ Mayor, for the record, yes, that's correct. We actually, all of our transit service we provide, but paratransit and fixed route, we have a public-private partnership, and currently the RFP that's out on the street, all of the companies that have responded are private sector, but to Assemblywoman Peters' point, their employees are unionized.
And so will you, I don't know how to- so will you be using, so you follow up, sorry. You explained that during the pandemic, that you had to reduce your services due to funding. As the stimulus money comes in, when or if it comes in, will you be restoring any service that was taken away previously in accordance with this microtransit system?
MJ Maynard, for the record, due to the pandemic and the corresponding decline in our sales tax and fare revenue, which support public transit, we cut approximately $9 million worth of transit service, over 100,000 service hours. Because we're receiving federal stimulus money for public transportation, our plan is to bring back our service levels to about 96% of where we were before the pandemic. And so we have a chance to add service back in a way that we think might be more effective, could potentially enhance the customer experience. And so our plan is to if this bill is passed, that we'll be able to provide microtransit in August.
Thank you. And my only other question is speaking of government employees, who's your favorite recently retired government employee?
You do not have to answer that question.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Assemblywoman Brown May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Maynard. It's really great to see you here in person today. And I want to thank you for all the really great work that I know your agency does to support so many people across the valley. This is really exciting and very interesting. I have really two questions. First, I want to follow up on my colleague's question and be really clear. The first mile, last mile, I think is insightful in many, many ways. but in particular for the paratransit customers who've often done that first mile, last mile to a central point to have a paratransit bus pick them up at a local 7-Eleven or other public location. Will this continue to do that, this microtransit? Would that transport them to a central location to pick up a regular paratransit ride, or would this really get them to their destination?
MJ Maynard for the record. This microtransit pilot, and I guess going back to Assemblywoman Armstrong, her point, this would be expanding the paratransit service area, and because of that, those paratransit customers would be picked up where they live and dropped directly off to the location that they desire, rather than having to find a central location and get picked up by paratransit.
Thank you. Follow-up, Chair. So I have two follow-ups relative to that. Do you have a number, a list, and obviously not a name, but the number of folks that would request paratransit services from that proposed area? And just for follow-up for later, I'm just curious to know how many people are out in that proposed area that would utilize paratransit services? And I don't expect for you to have that today. But then I'm curious to know, are there other cities or municipalities that you've looked at that are currently providing this type of service?
MJ Maynard for the record, I will definitely send you, we know exactly how many paratransit customers live inside of this new expanded area, and then based on what we know, how many we anticipate will actually, again, sign up to become paratransit certified, so I'll make sure and get that to you. For your second question, transit agencies around the United States started introducing microtransit as another mobility option as far back as 2016. So there are a number of transit agencies around the United States that operate this, and I'll use an example. LA Metro just kicked off their new microtransit service. So this is something, again, I think folks that ride transit also expect that as technology continues to evolve, that they get the same opportunity to take services that also, again, can use technology in a way that enhances their experience.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Maynard. Thank you, Ms. Chair.
Ms. Maynard, when you get that information, would you send it to our committee secretary, and we can get it out to all the members? You'll send.
MJ Maynard for the record, absolutely will do.
Thank you. Next, we have Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Let me reorganize here. It's weird being back in the committee room, but it's great to be here with all of you. And Ms. Maynard, let me start first by saying I really like the mask you're wearing today. Go Knights go. First team to make the playoffs this year, so I wanted to make sure that got out on the record. I really appreciate this bill. I have this map in front of me, and this proposed service area that's in light green is part of my district, the southwest part of Las Vegas. And one thing I hear a lot from constituents is the need for transportation, particularly as you get further down by Blue Diamond, Fort Apache area. So there's definitely a need and a desire, and I'm very thankful that this is where the program is going to be starting. My question is, what are your plans to get the word out to people in those areas who might be able to take advantage of this? Because I know you guys do a really good job getting the word out, and I'm sure you will, but just wanted to get a sense of what that's going to look like and how I might be able to help in those efforts.
Thank you, Senator. Great news that today we have Angela Castro with us, and she is in charge, her and her team are in charge of ensuring that this program is made available by way of marketing, et cetera, to the community. I'm actually happy, because it's so comprehensive, I'm going to ask her to come up and tell you about that.
Thank you. For the record, it's Angela Castro with the RTC. In terms of our service changes that we are proposing, if this bill passes, but right now we are actually going out and asking the community if this is something that they want. We have right now scheduled over 100 in-person engagements between now and May 31st. We are working with the Southern Nevada Health District. We are working with all of the local governments. We are at vaccine sites trying to get surveys. We are in local grocery stores that will allow us. We have a very diverse minority plan as well, so we're not just going mainstream. In addition to that, we also are working with a lot of our elected leaders. I think many of you received emails from our team asking you to push out the messaging. Our goal is to roughly get between 5,000 to 6,000 surveys, and it's not just from transit riders. So we want to hear from our community. While we may get 6,000, I've told my team it needs to be completed surveys. So all 15 questions need to be answered for that to count as one survey. So we anticipate we'll touch or engage with, I want to say, closely to 50 to 60,000 people within the next 45 days.
You. Assemblyman Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I love this idea, being able to get into some of these areas. But I'm trying to understand, and I'm having a hard time hearing you guys up there with the mask on. I can hear these guys here, but up there I'm having a hard time. But is this something that's already in your budget that you work with? Is that how that operates, or is this a new program that you got to add into it, or how does that work?
MJ Maynard for the record. As I mentioned, we were facing a transit deficit. We cut transit service during the pandemic. And the area that we are proposing this microtransit pilot to occur is an area of Southern Nevada that has not had any transit service ever. And even though we've been receiving comments from constituents in that area since 2006. And so because of the stimulus funding, we're now able to add back transit service to almost where we were pre-pandemic. And that's going to include that microtransit pilot. So it's not an additional, bucket of money, if you will. It's going to be part of adding service back pre-pandemic. We're just going to make sure that we stretch the tax dollar, and we do it in such a way that we're able to, for the first time, meet the needs of customers that have never had access to public transit.
Yeah, I think that's quite interesting. And you're going to expand that all over the city eventually? Is that your plan, or is it just going to be in this area where it's at right now?
MJ Maynard for the record. The beauty of a pilot is that we get to learn from it, and we get to understand what works, what doesn't work. We'll survey the customers, and if it does work, and we find that application, again, particularly microtransit is particularly helpful for a connection to public transit, so many times for areas that don't have transit, but we are open to identifying areas in our service area where microtransit could work. So it's really, we're going to take the lessons learned from this pilot and understand the success and where that can potentially replace a 40-foot bus, for example. It might make sense to have a smaller vehicle operated in a certain location in Southern Nevada.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to, if I may, Madam Chair, if I could, if he doesn't mind, if Mr. Yeager, if I could see your map and give me a better idea how far that goes down, if you don't mind. And thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Maynard, if you have not already uploaded the map onto Nellis, would you do that for us after the meeting? And that way, all the members that do not have a printed copy of it will have it, and then the public that's following along with this legislation will be able to see it as well.
Will do.
But Assemblyman Yeager, if you're watching, he will hold his map up so folks can see it. All right. Next for questions is Assemblyman Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have, I guess, a question, maybe two questions. One is a point of just clarifying for me as I'm learning, even more. So the microtransit service is going to be available to anybody, or is it just going to be paratransit just gets people directly door to door, right? So getting people to fixed routes, so anyone would be able to access the microtransit.
MJ Maynard for the record, that is correct. So if you don't have access to the map, I'll make sure you get that. But in the area that's in the light green, that's the proposed microtransit service area. Anyone that lives in that area that wants to get on a fixed route bus, needs that connection, we will pick them up and we will take them to the nearest bus line or bus stop. The paratransit customers that live in that zoned area will be given a pickup and a drop off to their desired location.
Okay, thank you. One more question, Chair. And Angela, she provided me with the map, so I did get that. And so I do understand in this kind of test area or this initial area, but I just wanted to make sure that anyone in that area would be able to access the microtransit service. So then my next question is, as far as the cost to the customer, what does that look like?
MJ Maynard for the record, the cost to the customer would be the same as riding our fixed route. So I think this time it's $2 each way. You could buy, I'll have to get back to that. If it's just getting you to a bus stop, it would be $2 one way. But we don't have any transfer. So the app itself will show that this person has paid their way already. We don't charge customers another fee when they transfer buses. So it would be $2 each way.
Okay, that's with including the transit from
That's
the
correct.
pickup from their point to, oh, awesome. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Members, are there any other questions? All right, seeing none, I thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
And we will go to support. Do we have anyone here in the room wishing to testify in support of this measure? Senate Bill 362.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kyle Davis, today on behalf of the Nevada Conservation League. It's great to be with you in the room today for the first time this session. We are here today in support of SB 362. We welcome the opportunity to increase mobility options for Nevadans and explore innovative solutions such as microtransit that generate positive benefits for our community and for our environment. On-demand transit service provides RTC's customers with additional options that are sustainable, safe, and get riders where they need to go. Furthermore, microtransit reduces the number of vehicles on the road, thus reducing pollution and improving air quality. Nevada has set bold goals to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and all options, including microtransit, should be considered in order to meet those goals. We urge the committee's support of SB 362. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's good to see you in person. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Dylan Keith. I'm the policy analyst for the Vegas Chamber, and it was also my pleasure to oversee the Southern Nevada Forum, which SB 362 was a Southern Nevada Forum legislative priority from the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and we are here in support. Our valley is in need of essential public transit services to support Nevada businesses, and SB 362 would provide microtransit as another transportation resource for the community. Microtransit would allow greater access and more flexibility for getting people where they need to go, especially to the doors of businesses across Southern Nevada. Thank you, Chair and members of the committee, for considering SB 362 and ensuring that Southern Nevada can provide additional mobility options to Valley residents and businesses.
Thank you. See no one else here in the room who wishes to provide testimony in support, we will go to our broadcast staff. Do we have any callers in the queue wishing to provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 362?
Testify in support of Senate Bill 362. Please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 741. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Paul Caffa, and I'm representing the Culinary Union. The Culinary Union represents 60,000 hospitality workers in Nevada, and many essential frontline shift workers rely on public transportation to get to work reliably, safely, and efficiently. SB 362 not only benefits hospitality workers, but also allows the RTC to service communities that previously had few viable options with regards to transportation. As public transportation adapts to technology and consumer preferences, on-demand transit service like microtransit will be essential to getting Nevadans where they need to be. The Culinary Union urges the Nevada Legislature to support and pass SB 362. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller?
Caller with the last 3 digits of 300. Please press star 6 to unmute. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Michael Hillerby, Hillerby, on behalf of RTC Washoe, here today to support the bill. We appreciate RTC Southern Nevada bringing forward, expanding on the legislation we brought forth last session. Our Flex Ride, or microtransit service in RTC Washow's territory, has been quite a success. We now have pilot programs operating in the Sparks, Spanish Springs area, North Valleys, and Somerset and Verdi in West Reno. These are areas that are beyond our normal fixed route service. Again, it's been very popular. It's been a cost-effective way to get people curb to curb to their destinations, and also reduce emissions by running smaller vehicles and avoiding some of the costs of expending fixed line services. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for your comments. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 505. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. We'll have 3 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Monroe Moreno and committee members. My name is Peter Guzman, and I am president of the Latin Chamber of Commerce and a member of the Transportation Resource Advisory Committee. I'm here to express my support for Senate Bill 362. Microtransit is a great opportunity for Hispanic-owned businesses in the community. With the flexibility provided by on-demand transit, customers can easily access and patronize local businesses in areas that traditional fixed route service does not service, yielding benefits for business owners and riders. Thank you for your time and consideration of SB 362. As Nevada continues to grow quickly, ensuring that Southern Nevada can provide additional mobility options to Valley residents and businesses should be a high priority for our state. I commend the RTC for always making our community better, and especially our business community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 184. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Monroe Moreno and committee members. My name is Matt Walker, calling in support on behalf of the Southern Nevada homebuilders. Microtransit is a smart way to expand services to our newer communities, and it demonstrates that with smarter planning, we can meet our joint objectives of GHG reduction and increased services in an efficient way. And for that reason, we are in full support. I also would like to briefly echo my support on behalf of Motional as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other callers who wish to provide testimony and support?
Yes, Chair. Caller, the last three digits of 878. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 3 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Justin Jones, and I serve as Vice Chair for the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada and as Clark County Commissioner for District F. I'm here today to express my strong support for Senate Bill 362. District F includes some of the fastest growing parts of the Las Vegas Valley, and much of my district does not have transit. SB 362 would greatly benefit my constituents as they return to school, work, and normal life by permitting the RTC to provide transit service that does not exist today. SB 362 specifically allows the RTC to offer microtransit service. This new service will provide another mobility option to nearly 70,000 residents who currently do not have transit service in my district. This expansion will connect the Southwest Las Vegas Valley to nearly 14,000 employment opportunities, 4 grocery stores, and over a dozen schools and child care facilities. In my capacity as Vice Chair of the RTC, I often hear from residents across Southern Nevada about the need for flexible, reliable transportation solutions, and microtransit offers them an on-demand and affordable option. Once again, thank you for your consideration of SB 362 and your efforts to ensure greater access to transit services for Southern Nevada.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 500. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Helen Foley, Helen Foley, and I'm calling to express support for Senate Bill 362. I am the manager of the Transportation Resource Advisory Committee, known as TRAC. TRAC was formed in 2015 and serves as an advisory group to the RTC of Southern Nevada. The committee chair, Don Snyder, was unable to be here today and asked me to testify in support of Senate Bill 362 on his behalf. TRAC consists of 35 community leaders, including representation from labor, gaming, environmental, business, chambers, higher education, seniors, and transit users. The committee cares deeply about mobility issues in Southern Nevada. As you know, technology is changing the face of public transportation in so many ways. Allowing the RTC to provide on-demand transit service will help ensure that the RTC can meet the transportation demand of its current and future customers. SB 362 removes current statutory impediments to the provision of on-call public transit and will allow the RTC of Southern Nevada to continue its mission of improving connectivity, accessibility, and equity to all of our Valley residents. Thank you for considering SB 362 to help improve our transportation options in Southern Nevada.
Thank you. Next caller.
If you're just joining us, we are currently taking support for Senate Bill 362. If you wish to testify in support, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 617. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last 3 digits of 617, please press star 6 to unmute and begin your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chair Monroe Marino and committee members. My name is Richard Mason, R-A-S-H-A-R-D, M-A-S-O-N. I am a resident of Las Vegas in support of Senate Bill 362. As a Valley resident, I have used routes 206, Charleston, 210, Lake Mead, and the Sahara Express, along with other routes as needed. Transit is important service to the community, and as a transit rider, this is how I and other customers are able to get to work, to the grocery store, to the doctor, and other essential trips when a personal vehicle is not an option. Expanding transit services and allowing the RTC to offer microtransit would give me and other riders more public transit options. Thank you for your time and consideration of Senate Bill 362.
Thank you so much for your comments, Mr. Mason. Thank you for joining us. Do we have anyone else in the queue wishing to provide testimony and support?
Yes, Chair, I believe we have one last caller.
Thank you.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 886. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes and may begin.
Thank you. Deborah March, D-E-B-R-A, M-A-R-C-H. Good afternoon, Chair Monroe Moreno and committee members. My name is Deborah March, and I'm the City of Henderson Mayor and Chairwoman for the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada. I'd like to express my support for Senate Bill 362. In my role as chair of the RTC and as mayor, I'm well aware of the demands for transit service and that they far outweigh the resources that are available in our community. In the city of Henderson alone, specifically in West Henderson, we've heard from many businesses such as Levi Strauss, FedEx, Kroger, and Toronto Baking Company that their employees need access and connectivity to reliable transit services that don't exist today. This bill will allow the RTC to provide essential transit services as early as August to an area of West Henderson affected with more than 31,000 residents, 3,900 employment sites, 9 new child care facilities, and 2 grocery stores. This also covers the Haas Automation facility as well. As the chairwoman for the RTC, I'm grateful for your consideration of SB 362 and all that you do to ensure that the city of Henderson and all of our Southern Nevada communities have a viable transportation option. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor March, for joining us. BPS, did anyone else join us to call in testimony of support?
Yes, Chair. 1 second. Caller with the last 3 digits of 653. Please press star 6 to unmute. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes and may begin. Caller, you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman and the committee members and everybody. My name is Dora Martinez. I'm member of the Nevada Disability Peer Action Coalition, also member of the RTC Citizen Multimodal Advisory Committee, and I do support this I forgot the number, but I do support it. We have that here at the Washoe County, and it's really useful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Ms. Martinez. I believe that was our last caller in the queue to provide testimony and support, correct?
Yes, Chair. We have no further callers in support.
Thank you so much. Do we have any callers in the queue who wish to provide testimony in opposition?
To testify in opposition of Senate Bill 362, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in opposition.
Thank you. Do we have any callers in the queue who wish to provide testimony in the neutral?
To testify in the neutral position on Senate Bill 362, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in the neutral position.
Thank you so much. Well, I'll ask our presenters, do you have any closing comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, for your time. I don't think I have anything else to add. Thank you for your support, and I urge you to pass Senate Bill 362.
Thank you so much. And with that, we will close the hearing on Senate Bill 362. And I see Senator Dennis in the room, so I will welcome you to the dais, and we will open the hearing on Senate Bill 204. Welcome to Growth and Infrastructure.
Good afternoon. It's good to be with you. It's kind of fun to be back in person, kind of, with you. For the record, Senator Mo Dennis, Senate District 2, and represent downtown area of Las Vegas, and I'm here today to present Senate Bill 204, which will help transform the DMV and how it operates, and it will help you take care of probably the #1 constituent complaint that you get, other than maybe this year with the unemployment, which is the long lines at DMV. As many of you know, the pandemic caused the DMV to shut down for 2 months last summer, and since it reopened, the offices have been limited to only 50% normal capacity. That situation created a tremendous backlog, and the DMV has been working hard to catch up. To help alleviate the backlog, the DMV put some services online, which turned out to be very effective. More than 81,000 Nevadans have taken advantage of the new option to renew driver's licenses online and save themselves a trip to the DMV. However, there are still a number of critical services which can only be conducted in person. This needs to change, and the DMV is working towards a transformation of the department. This bill is an important policy piece of that effort. So what does the bill do? Section 1 of the bill allows DMV to issue cards, certificates, or licenses in electronic form, but only if a physical version of the document has also been issued. So think about that. You could carry your driver's license on your phone. Section 2 makes it clear that a person is still required to have the physical version with them in the vehicle unless there's an already exception in the law. NRS 482.255, as cited in the bill in Section 1, refers back to just such an exception. This exception was added last session and allows vehicle registered through the Motor Carrier Division to use electronic images in lieu of carrying paper registrations. Senate Bill 204 builds on that foundation by giving the DMV the latitude to expand the use of electronic images and formats for licenses, registrations, and such. Section 2 gives the DMV the authority to establish an electronic branch and to conduct transactions electronically, but only if the director has determined that transactions can be properly conducted by electronic means, and only if electronic transactions are not prohibited by state or federal law. And that's something that we're starting to see in other states also, where they have basically an electronic DMV office. There was a concern, so I want to emphasize first that this section does not give the DMV blanket authority to conduct all transactions electronically. There was a concern expressed on the Senate side about the authentication of certain documents without an in-person meeting and inspection. And the DMV understands that not every transaction is appropriate for conversion to an electronic format. Other states and the federal government are grappling with these same issues, and so Nevada is not alone in this effort. Clearly, the changes contemplated in Senate Bill 204 will take time, and both sections of this bill are enabling, not mandatory. But Senate Bill 204 gives the DMV the opportunity to migrate more services to electronic or online platforms, including the ability to offer a mobile driver's license or identification card. So to wrap up, I ask that you give the DMV the flexibility it needs to expand its offering of online and electronic transactions and help move the DMV's transformation mission forward. People who do not have internet access or who just prefer conducting business in person can still visit a DMV office and use a traditional driver's license and registration card. But for many Nevadans, the ability to conduct DMV transactions online will be an enormous time saver. Of course, DMV will have to conduct an education campaign to inform Nevadans about the new online options, and it will take some time for people to get comfortable with the new platforms. As I said before, not every transaction is going to be online immediately, and some transactions may never lend themselves to an electronic format. But in the end, this transformation effort will benefit all Nevadans by eliminating or reducing trips to the DMV and shortening lines at the physical locations. In conclusion, I urge your support of Senate Bill 204. Thank you again for the opportunity to present this bill. The DMV is also here to speak in support, and I know that Sean Seaver from the DMV is online.
Thank you so much. Mr. Seaver, did you want to add anything to the presentation before we go to questions?
Yes, please, Chair. This is Sean Sever from the DMV. Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. Thank you for letting us present this bill to you today, and we wanted to thank Senator Dennis for sponsoring this for us. As Senator Dennis mentioned, 81,000 Nevadans have taken advantage of renewing their driver's licenses online since last September. So that shows you it's a great example of what Nevadans want from the DMV. And of course, as you mentioned, our offices will still be open for those wanting in-person transactions. And so the DMV is committed to radically changing its long-term service delivery model from an in-person brick and mortar service to an online storefront, similar to online shopping experiences many of you use today. The DMV has made a budget request of the 2021 legislature to start its transformation effort, which is a 4-year process to transition most, if not all, of our services online. And SB 204 is a big part of this effort, and we greatly appreciate you considering this bill. I also have our Deputy Director here, Jude Huron, to help with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we'll go to questions. We have a few people in line already. We'll start with Assemblyman Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I had some concerns when I first read this, and I wasn't sure, so I did call DMV, and I talked to DMV, and when I got done, and apparently this is going on all over the United States, quite a bit, using this a lot. And he answered all my questions, and he did a great job, but DMV is always pretty good, to call up and work with. One of the questions that I had with him is, You know, when they sent out when you had your driver's license, and if you didn't want to go to DMV, you could get the sticker, and they'd send you the sticker, and you put it on the back of your driver's license, and that was good for another 4 years. But when you got out of state and you got in an airport, they'd pull you over and say your driver's license expired. And when you try to show them the little sticker, they'd say, no, that we won't accept that. So that created a lot of problem, and they don't do that anymore. But it's good as if I needed an electronic version of this right now, I could call up or get on a computer and get it and be sent to me, and I can send it to my insurance agent or whatever. So I think that's a great idea, and thank you for the bill. So.
Thank you. Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions. I know this is enabling, but I'm particularly interested in the electronic driver's licenses. And I promise I won't ask about electronic license plates because those are, I think, a little more involved. But I noticed in the first part of the bill, Section 1, Subsection 1, there's this requirement that you can't have a physical driver's license and an electronic one. And my question was, is that there just because there's too much opportunity for fraud if someone has an electronic one and then could hand their actual physical one to somebody else to be used?
So I would think Mr. Sever probably, I can tell you my version of that would be, I think that the technologies are still being developed that would allow, because I mean, when you think of your driver's license on your phone, you would think that it would be like a copy, like a picture of your driver's license on there. But in actuality, I would envision that there would be applications that would be developed that would have that information, and then you could only show the information that needs to be shown. So if all they need to know is your name and address and your picture, then it would just show that. So you don't have to show everything that you have on a driver's license. So that's what I would envision. And I think they can probably verify that. But
thank you, Senator Dennis. Thank you. For the record, Jude Heron, Deputy Director of DMV. You are correct, Senator Dennis, as well. In addition to that, since it is new technology, a lot of jurisdictions or states are piloting this right now. The reason for the language, Assemblyman Yeager, is kind of a transitory kind of language. It's a transition because of this technology. Not everybody will take it. We want to make sure that everybody still has their physical card. And as time goes on and the technology gets improved and so forth, it will eventually get to a point to where it'll be down the road, years down the road, it'll be just an electronic version of itself. So it's more of a transition. Other states are doing that as well in their DMV pilots. So we thought that was a good idea to go down that route.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the follow-up. And so, Senator Dennis, to be honest, I forgot we were in person all of a sudden, so I'm sorry I wasn't looking at you when I asked the question. I'm so used to looking at the screen in Zoom, so trying to still get used to this world. So the second question is, it's along those same lines, and I think about what we use our driver's licenses for now, and I think the most pressing for most of us probably in Southern Nevada is you use them with TSA. They put them through the scanner now. Or for age verification purposes, when you go to places, they'll have you, scan the back of it. Or I suppose pharmacies, if you're buying some controlled substance, they'll scan that barcode on the back. And maybe at airports as well. I think I mentioned that. But so my question is, I understand this is enabling, but is there technology out there right now, or is it being developed that would allow the integration of all of those platforms? Because not that I think you're going to launch this without that being ready, but obviously there's some concerns there about if you only had an electronic version of it, if you can't get through the airport, or if you're not going to be able to be age verified by some of the technology. So I wondered if you could just, if how close are we to having, full integration, not just in the state of Nevada, but as a country and indeed as a global economy?
So I'll start. As far as the technology, I will allow DMV because I know that they've done some research on that, on what's going on. But as you know, technology is changing constantly. With the Real ID there are specific things that you have to do in order for TSA, for example, to accept that information. So as we've done in the past, I know on other legislation that I've worked on with the DMV, you have to make sure that whatever we do will comply with that also as we move forward. So I would think that all of those things would be possible as the security and all those measures are put in place. You'll be able to, in all those instances, do, whether it's an ID that you're trying to present or other information. But I think the DMV can talk about how far has it been developed as far as in the country or in the world for that matter.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator Dennis. Jude Heron for the record, Deputy Director of DMV. Just to add to that, there are, as I said before, there's other states already piloting this. And we do right now have one of our vendors that actually creates the credentials for the DMV, the driver's license, ID cards, and so forth right now, is one of our vendors that we hope to, in the next 18 months, 24 months, around there, expand services, hopefully, to provide this kind of what they call authentication and verification systems. And it is centered around the security that you're talking about, Assemblyman Yeager, is one of the biggest things that we want to make sure on is that we're not compromising our protocols within the DMV before issuing a credential. This technology that is in place today allows an individual through these vendors to kind of like what you do today. If you want an app or something to that, you add that app, and there's a certain app protocols that you go through. And this app actually verifies who you are, and it authenticates you. And through that proven process, we could actually create this mobile ID kind of verification system, not just for the mobile IDs, but also for what we hope to, through our transformation system, is to allowing people, whether they're new or they just got their license, whatever, or they're reinstating, to actually have the ability to upload information electronically and so forth. And so all that technology is available today. However, we're looking at this as a timing issue because of transformation and because of Senate Bill 4133, which is the Real ID Modernization Act. This is the actual language that helps all jurisdictions, give them the flexibility to actually expand their driver's license programs to allow an individual to upload electronic documents from their home and to apply for their credentials rather than coming into the office. So what our hope is through our vendor right now and through the work that Homeland Security is doing through this bill, as well as our transformation project, our timing of this is essential, is critical, I should say. And in the meantime, other states are piloting this, and our vendor it's got a pulse on it. And our vendor right now, who does this verification authentication technology, is working with other states on this project right now, as well as Washington and Congress and AMVA and all the other associations. So we believe at that time, when we actually roll out through our transformation in the next couple of years for the driver's license piece of this, our hope is to roll out also the ability not only to apply from your home, but the ability also to have a mobile ID. But that also takes in consideration our outside stakeholder campaign that we have to work with as well. It's one thing to create a mobile ID. It's another thing to actually work with the stakeholders outside of our offices to make sure that they understand and they'll accept it, so that you can go under TSA or retail stores and so forth, insurance companies, and that's an acceptable credential in their eyes as well.
Assemblyman Levitt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Mr. Yeager kind of clarified for me the electronic versus possession of a physical license. My other question was, so in creation of this new office or this electronic branch office, is there a cost associated with it? And accordingly, to do the informational campaign, is there an additional cost that's put upon the DMV to do these two things?
So I'll start just because I'm on finance. We get the budgets for the departments, and I know the department for the modernization has already submitted a budget for that. So this is really enabling language that would allow them with this new modernization to be able to do the electronic piece, which currently they can't do because statutes doesn't permit them to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Dennis and Mr. Seaver, for your presentation. Gentleman from DMV, you had mentioned that you need to talk to your stakeholders. You mentioned some agencies, but I did not hear you mention the police. And in addition to this ID being used in supermarkets and retail locations, this would be a very useful tool for, police interaction, traffic stops, what have you. Would you be considering them to have access to this? I know we had a bill earlier in the session about license plates and registration. And so what is the difference between this type of technology being used for IDs and what we talked about before? And is there any conversation going on about just access to all of it so we can cut down on some of the interactions? Thank you.
Jude Heron for the record. Thank you, Assemblywoman, for the question. And my apologies for not listing them. They're pretty much our partner, our brother agency with everything that we do that's law enforcement. We have a back-end connection with them electronically where we provide the data from DMV always. So when a project, no matter what the project is, affects law enforcement, we are glued to our hips of basically of making sure that electronically their data is updated, training is provided. We're working with them in a partnership to make sure that the officers on the street, dispatch units, and everybody are fully aware of that. Training is provided and so forth. So yes, Assemblywoman, you are correct. Law enforcement is going to be key in this. And we believe that the language right now in the bill that talks about a physical card that you have today, as well as an electronic version, is going to be helpful for, I believe someone mentioned that, if your phone goes out or you have problems and you can't pull up your mobile ID, you still have a physical ID you can provide to the officer, knowing full well that the officer is probably going to be pulling that information through dispatch and so forth. So those are the things that we're looking at when it comes to rolling out this digital kind of system for the credentials. And not only local law enforcement, we work with sheriffs and chiefs, we work with the federal law enforcement, FBI, DHS, that are in this area as well as all criminal justice agencies, which encompass about 135 agencies through to the Department of Public Safety. So we do a very extensive training and partnership with all of them.
This is Senator Dennis, and I one thing I wanted to add as he was talking, it reminded me, in the past when I've worked with public safety folks on issues, well, the one thing that they always talk about is they want to be able to identify the person that they're talking to. So if somehow you have forgotten your license, but you hardly ever forget your phone, you would have that ability. So that makes it even safer for everybody because the police will be able to identify who the individual is. If by chance they lost their wallet or whatever, they'd still have the ability to do that.
Thank you. And I believe our final question is from Assemblyman Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and sorry to drag this out, just to pique my curiosity from the last set of questions and from a law enforcement standpoint. And kind of on Assemblyman Yeager's question is, how it would look. It's not going to be a photo of your ID. It could conceivably be an app and that somebody would automatically verify, and this might be more towards DMV. But from the police standpoint, if somebody did lose their phone and their wallet or everything, the police officers should be able to go to the app and verify and pull somebody's up, actually see their picture, and it would be able to authenticate somebody's ID, immediately. And in the same, and correct me if I'm wrong, it might more of a statement, maybe a question. And the way I understand it too is if let's say I don't have an electronic version, I fly to wherever, I'm a victim of a crime and I lose my wallet or whatever, you could conceivably send me an electronic copy. I could upload the app, I could get back on a plane and come home, whereas now that you wouldn't be able to do that. Is that kind of what we're looking to do? Either
Yes,
Senator or
Jude,
DB?
for the record. I didn't know if Senator was going to respond to that or not.
Oh,
My
yeah, no, I was going to
apologies.
say, I mean, I think for me, especially on the driver's license piece, I think that's a critical piece to be able to have that ability to always have that information available to you. Yes, so I would anticipate that.
Just a last follow-up, I think it's a great idea. It's very innovative. It definitely moves in the direction that we need to get away from you guys being able to have to see so many customers in the house. If you have the ability to do this online, I think it's fantastic, and I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions before we go to the lines for support of this measure? Seeing none, I will ask our broadcast staff if we have any callers in the queue wishing to provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 204.
Testify in support of Senate Bill 204. Please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in support.
Thank you so much. Do we have any callers wishing to provide testimony in opposition?
To testify in opposition of Senate Bill 204, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 653. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 3 minutes and may begin.
Madam Chair, this is Dora Martinez. I apologize. I was calling to support. May I continue? I'm sorry. I was dialing slow.
That's okay, Ms. Martinez. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I really like this bill. Coming from a blind perspective or a disability perspective, it's useful because all of us, those that have smartphone, use their phone instead of if a person has cerebral palsy. I have friends who have that, who have cerebral palsy. It's hard for them to reach into their backpack when their PCA is not there. Personal care attendant is not there. So, and they have their phone on their phone handle on their chair, so they get to flick and get their ID and present it. So I think this is a great idea. And also, as a blind person going to get a driver's license, a state ID. I don't legally drive, but my dog, when we go to the DMV, my dog would just cut through lines, and I think I get a lot of mean looks, but as a blind as a bliss, I can't see. So I think this is a really innovative idea, and thank you so much for presenting it. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for joining us. Are there any callers in the queue who would wish to provide testimony in opposition to Senate Bill 204?
Chair, we have no callers in the queue in opposition.
Thank you. Do we have anyone wishing to testify in the neutral?
Testify in the neutral position on Senate Bill 204. Please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in neutral.
Thank you. And with that, we will close testimony, and I'll ask if you have any closing remarks for the committee.
Just a couple quick ones. I know we focused a lot on the driver's license, and Senator Dennis, for the record. When, during the pandemic, trying to just take care of things with the DMV, I had to do several things, and having a son who was trying to get a driver's permit and the documents that are required, especially with the Real ID. That's what really was of interest to me, to be able to figure out ways that we can do that without having to physically go down and present like an official birth certificate and those kind of things. So by having this electronic technology available to us in the future, be able to tie into a lot of different things that'll allow for that. I think what really, when the DMV, when we were talking about this, the one thing that had just happened is Costco had just switched, they had an app, and they switched their app now so that you can use their electronic version. And so we're starting to see this more and more so it's not necessarily a new concept, and by the time it gets developed, it'll be something that people will be demanding. So we're just trying to get hold of the curve and ahead of the curve, and appreciate the opportunity to come present the bill and urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation of the wave of the future, the way we're going. It's good to see you in person. And with that, we will close the hearing on Senate Bill 204. And we will open the hearing on our final bill of today, which is Senate Bill 58. And I believe our presenters are joining us virtually. So you can please begin whenever you're ready. I believe we have the Chief Investigations Division from DPS. Patrick, are you there, Conway?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Monroe Moreno and committee members. For the record, I'm Patrick Conway, Division Chief for the Investigation Division of the Department of Public Safety. The intent of Senate Bill 58 is to update statutory language that delineates the Investigation Division's duties and responsibilities in order to ensure compliance with existing mandates and to meet the needs of the various entities that occasionally require or request investigative assistance. The division recognizes its mission to be one of support for the Department of Public Safety's effort to promote safer communities throughout Nevada. In pursuit of that, the division conducts a variety of criminal investigations, both as the primary investigative entity or upon specific requests from assorted public agencies. Specifically, current statutory language enables the Nevada sheriffs, chiefs of police, district attorneys, the attorney general, the Secretary of State, and the Department of Education to request investigative assistance from the division. The division routinely receives such requests and provides assistance. Historically, however, the division has received requests for assistance from various other state agencies and entities. These can frequently involve threats against state officials, employees, or facilities, fraudulent transactions involving public monies, or conflicts of interest for the requesting agency. Over its history and where no other option existed, the division has provided these agencies that assistance. Furthermore, current statutory language does not specifically enable the director of the Department of Public Safety to utilize the department's own investigation division to provide other divisions within the department with investigative assistance where appropriate. Additionally, statutes that delineate responsibilities of the Nevada Office of Cyber Defense Coordination require the investigation division to coordinate with that office on gathering intelligence and initiating investigations of cyber threats and incidents. The proposed changes outlined in SB 58 provide clarification as to the division's role in providing investigative assistance and who can request such assistance, and the changes enable various state agencies and entities that might otherwise have no capability to conduct such investigations the ability to ask for help. Specifically, the changes specify that the division will provide investigative services to the heads of certain state agencies upon request. The division will investigate certain technological crimes and enforce provisions of law relating to technological crimes. And the division will provide investigative services upon request to certain state agencies in criminal investigations relating to cannabis. The changes also enable the Director of Public Safety to efficiently use available department resources. This concludes my testimony on SB 58. Thank you for your time, and I would be happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Members, any questions? Assemblywoman Peters?
Thank you, Chair. And this is a really interesting bill because, in part, I don't have that much background in the work you do with other agencies. So it's interesting to see that you in existing statute are limited to working with, who was it, the department or the AG and I don't have it in front. Oh, and any sheriff or chief of police or district attorney. In reading this, though, I am curious. You said a little bit about that your agency does offer these services as kind of a last resort, maybe. But can you clarify a little bit more on who already has the authority to do the investigatory work that you're describing will be enabled by this bill?
If I understand the question, is it who does it now?
Yes.
Other than this division?
Yes.
Generally, I mean, local law enforcement can help if an agency were to contact them, but our experience has shown us that when state agencies are involved, local law enforcement jurisdictions prefer that a state entity would assist in the investigation. In this past year and a half, with some of the things that have gone on, we have helped other state agencies with investigations involving complaints that have risen more to the level of actual threats against people or facilities. And in those instances, a lot of times the administrators of those state entities are searching for who's going to help us with this. And they get bounced around quite a bit. And so what we do is when they ask, and again, the key factor here is it would always be based upon request. The division just doesn't move in and decide it's going to do something. If somebody asks for help and that is a reasonable request, then we would step in and give them that assistance rather than have them searching around for days or weeks trying to find somebody to assist them when there's an immediate problem.
May I have a follow-up? Thank you. So I'm wondering in some of these cases, and I'm thinking about in here that specifically the Department of Taxation is called up and are called out in the Division of Public and Behavioral Health and the Cannabis Compliance Board, and then technology-related crimes. I am wondering about this bill's enabling language regarding the jurisdiction of your office. So in the Department of Taxation, they have existing language about what they investigate and what they don't investigate due to licenses and the agreements that are made between those parties. Would that be where you would come in to investigate, or would this be specific to internal investigations related to some impropriety within the divisions? Or can you just describe a little bit about those scenarios within and outside of the existing regulatory framework of those divisions?
I think it could involve any of those things, but only if the agency itself contacted us and said, hey, we could use some help. For example, what taxation and regulatory investigative processes that they normally engage in, I would not expect that they would ever ask us to assist them with that. If in the course of a regulatory investigation, someone at taxation discovered, I can't even think of an example, but something that was criminal in nature that went beyond what they normally would address, then they would have the option to reach out to us for assistance. But the bill does not enable us to step into anybody else's business absent a request for help.
Thank you for that clarification. And just in reading this, it says the investigation division shall, and then upon request assist. And I just, I worry about the openness of that and for expanded access to your division, and in a scenario where there's just maybe not the right number of people in each of these departments or divisions, other divisions, and kind of shifting the burden of their job onto you. So I would just be curious to think about whether there's an out for you to say, we think this is really within your jurisdiction and not within ours, or if this binds you to if they ask that you have to apply, have to comply.
Well, even today, the way I'm sorry, Pat Conway, for the record, even today, and when the existing sheriff's chiefs, district attorneys, when those folks ask us for assistance, we always have a conversation with them about what that assistance would entail. And then we have a request for assistance form that we complete in conjunction with them to specifically state what it is that is being requested. And there are occasions when during those conversations, we will say, this is better handled a different way by you or by someone else. It's not that I really want to be clear that this is not intended to be some absolute that the investigation division then steps in to somebody else's business. We want to just be available should the need arise. And it has been arising more and more frequently. And we provide assistance now and have not had problems where there's conflicts with existing operations. That's not the intent.
Thank you.
Assemblyman Miller?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and bringing the bill. I just have a quick question in section 2, where we're talking about polygraph instruments. And I see there, it looks like where things are now, they can only be used at the office of the Attorney General or Sheriff, Chief, and Police or District Attorney. Is that correct?
Currently, those are the agencies that can make a request.
Okay.
So we provide the polygraph service if it's needed.
Okay. So my actual question here is so now it looks like we're expanding that to all all agencies to be able to, I guess, is it request the service or administer the service, or if you can clarify that?
Yes, they could request the service if they wanted to. And in fact, we have provided polygraph support to some agencies. For example, if they need that for pre-employment, we will offer that service. And again, it shouldn't be confused. It's not a compelled service. It's just something that we can do if someone would like to have it available to them.
So, and just one last point here. So I'm a bit, I guess, concerned when we consider that the accuracy and some of the bias issues with polygraphs, that we are essentially expanding the use of them. Is there a reason that needs to be expanded?
With respect to polygraph, I want to be clear about something. So if we are conducting a polygraph or offering a polygraph in conjunction with a criminal investigation, for example, that is not a compelled service or operation. That would be if somebody were willing or wished to engage in a polygraph. With respect to polygraphs that we offer for pre-employment, that might be a condition of employment for a specific agency, and then we would offer that. Am I making sense? So we're not going to be compelling people to take polygraphs, especially with respect to criminal investigations that we engage in. It would be a service that would be available if somebody wished to take or submit to a polygraph or offer to do that.
So just so that I'm clear, we're clear, the polygraph is only at the request or the permission of the person that would be taking it.
Yes.
It's
So
voluntary.
we might say to an individual, would you be willing to take a polygraph? And they could say yes or no.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from members? Assemblyman Yeager and then Assemblyman Roberts.
Thank you, Vice Chair Watson. Just a quick follow-up on Assemblyman Miller's question. So the agencies that are being included that can use your services when it comes to polygraphs, I would assume those agencies are they paying outside people now if they're in situations where employees or other folks are taking polygraphs? Do you know like where they go for those services, if they go for those services at the time being?
I don't know if they go to outside services, but I do know that on occasion, some have approached us and asked for that service, and we provided it without charge, obviously. We would do it today if we got the request.
Thank you. Assemblyman Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, or Vice Chairman. So a couple questions. In Section 1, so the first part, you're expanding your investigative authority. Currently, you just do 454 and 453. And so now you're expanding your responsibilities to investigate technological crime. That's currently not within your purview, right? And what's the advantage of adding that to your repertoire?
Actually, I'm sorry again, Pat Conway for the record. In the last legislative session, some statutes were passed that that required the investigation division to conduct some business in conjunction with the cyber defense, the Office of Cyber Defense. And so this language in this bill is just trying to get us together so that what another statute is telling us to do, the statute that governs our division authorizes us.
Okay. Thank you. So you're already.
That's how we get involved in that.
So thank you. So you're already performing some of these duties required by other parts of statute. This just cleans that up. So the second question would be the additional assistance to the other portions of state government. And you talked about that you're already doing some of that too. And I see the Cannabis Compliance Board and some of the investigations that they may need to do. Is there like a shortage of? You guys have a shortage of work that you're expanding into other places of the state or into other crimes? I'm just kind of curious on your current caseload. And in 2 years from now, in Ways and Means, we see this as a budget expansion or for more people because we authorized an expansion of your responsibilities this time. I'm just curious as how you're going to handle the workload.
There's no shortage of work, but I want to be clear that even today, that my intent or the idea of this bill is sort of to bring things in line with what actually occurs even today. So I don't anticipate that the additional duties outlined in this bill are going to increase workload significantly because these entities come to us now because they don't have anywhere else to go. If that makes sense. And so I'm trying to just ensure that the statutory language is kind of in line with what we've been more or less forced to do in order to help folks out anyway.
Okay.
They need to have this.
All right. Thank you for the answers and thank you for the question, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members? Seeing none, thank you for the presentation. I believe we can go to testimony in support of SB 58. Seeing none in the room, broadcast, do we have anyone wishing to provide testimony in support by phone?
Testify in support of Senate Bill 58. Please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Vice Chair, we have no callers in support.
Thank you. Do we have any callers in the queue wishing to provide testimony in opposition?
To testify in opposition, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in opposition.
Thank you. Do we have anyone on the line wishing to provide neutral comments?
To testify in neutral of Senate Bill 58, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in neutral.
Thank you so much. Seeing no one on the phone, I'll ask you if you have any final remarks for the committee before we close the hearing on Senate Bill 58.
No, I just thank Pat Conway for the record. Just thank the committee for its time.
Thank you so much for joining us and for the presentation. And with that, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 58. And members, that brings us to the last item on our agenda for today, and that is public comment. We'll ask our broadcast staff, do we have anyone wishing to provide public comment before we adjourn today?
To offer public comments, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public comment line is open and working. However, we have no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. Members, with that, that concludes today's meeting. I'd like to thank our presenters, the committee staff, our broadcast staff, and the members of the public that were able to join us here virtually. Our next meeting for the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure will be Tuesday, April 27th at 1:30 here in this room and virtually, where we'll hear 3 bills. And for that, we are adjourned.
So I can already picture